My name is Donna Hamilton, and it is my privilege to serve as president of the Juno Beach Civic Association. Welcome to Candidates Night 2022. Alexander Cook and John Callahan are competing for the Juno Beach Council, seat number 5. And our esteemed moderator is Roger Buckwalter. I found a quote this morning, and it's by Father Theodore Herzborough. He's the former president of Notre Dame University. And he's quoted as saying that voting is a civic sacrament. So it's fitting that we're here at the church. I want to sincerely thank Pastor Jim Grayson for opening his church doors and sponsoring the Candidates Night. And also thank you to Eric Rucker for his technology expertise, and to Bruce Franzen for tasking as the timekeeper with his partner here, Paul. Thank you so much. The Juno Beach Civic Association has been bringing the Candidates Night to our citizens for over 45 years to evaluate the candidates for council in an open and neutral forum. We are an all-volunteer, nonpartisan, nonprofit association dedicated to enhancing the quality of life in Juno Beach. Through your annual membership, sponsorships, and participation, we are able to fund these programs. If you are a member, we thank you. And if not, we would invite you to enjoy and participate in our association. So now it is my pleasure to introduce this evening's moderator, Roger Buckwalter. Roger is a retired editorial page editor of the Jupiter Courier, where he presided for over 28 years. He's also a brilliant journalist, actor, historian, and community leader. So please welcome Roger. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for those very kind words, Donna. Appreciate it. And it's my pleasure to also welcome you to this forum, which, as Donna said, features the candidates in the Juno Beach municipal election on March 8th. As she said, the candidates for Town Council Seat 5 are John Callahan and Alexander Cook. The rules of this forum are as follows. Each candidate will have 4 minutes to make an opening statement. After these statements, each candidate will pose 2 questions to his opponent. There will be 2 minutes for answers and 1 minute for rebuttals. Following that, written questions will be taken from the audience, which I will read to the candidates. If we get several similar questions, I may combine and summarize them. Cards have been made available to you to write your questions. If you need the card, just go ahead and raise your hand. Please keep them brief and to the point. Because every candidate, or each candidate, will have an opportunity to answer every question, please do not address your questions to one specific candidate. Also, we will ask questions that were sent to us online from those who are watching on Zoom. And also, if need be, I may pose some questions of my own. To be fair, I will alternate the order of the responses among the candidates. To allow time for as many questions as possible, I ask the candidates to be brief in their answers and limit themselves to 1 minute. After this portion of the forum, the candidates each will have 3 minutes to make a closing statement. And as was mentioned, timekeeper Bruce Franzen is sitting there in the front, and he will hold up signs signaling how much time you have left. 1 minute, 30 seconds out of time. By a coin toss before we began, it was decided that the opening statements will be made in the following order: Alexander Cook and John Callahan, and also the order of the closing statements will be John Callahan and Alexander Cook. And now we begin with opening statements of 4 minutes each. The first one from Alexander Cook.
Hello, everyone. Good to see the group out here. We've got quite a few people. I have been a resident of Juno Beach for about 5 years now. I am one of the newer residents, I'll admit that. But I've seen what happens to little towns like Juno Beach when the right people don't stand up to protect it. We're very happy to be here, and we're very lucky to be here. We're in a great little spot right by the lake. And I will do everything in my power to keep the town a small beach town that is shielded by those encroaching on us and those looking to develop the town and turn it into Miami. I have already been someone who stood up against this, and you don't have to take my word for it. I can assure you I'm the only candidate that has already had to deal with a developer threatening me. And that is a direct relation to the fact that he was personally insulted because I called his building ugly. In any case, I am here to do everything I can to protect this town, to keep it small, to keep it Juno Beach. I have a lot of great ideas. I bring a lot to the table. I bring a financial background. I bring an accounting background. I bring a technology background. I am well versed in just about everything you could imagine is necessary in all those aspects. This is a background that is not on the council, has not been on the council, and is necessary for the future. Most of the town's prospects are based on the financial side, but not only that, it's based on the fact that we are looking for new people in the future. Our town manager and our CFO will be retiring soon. The best person in a position like that is somebody who has run a business, handled employees, hired people, but most of all, someone who carries the kind of background that knows what to search for in dealing with these kinds of things. Not only am I that kind of candidate, I stand here in front of you basically telling you point blank, I'm about the closest thing you're going to get to a superhero in Juno Beach. I don't play games, I cannot be bought, and I cannot be manipulated. I don't take endorsements, I don't take contributions. I don't deal with either of those aspects because those are all strings that can be held upon you. People who take money from large groups outside of us, unions, be it, whatever, they have strings on them. They can control you, and they can tell you what to do and how to vote. And you do have to bend the knee to them in order to get those endorsements. So I don't even bother attempting them. I don't go there. I very politely say thank you, but no thank you. You will find that I'm a very different person from what stood up here before. And I intend to use that to be for the residents and protect the residents, the town, and everything it has to offer so that 10 years from now, 20 years from now, there's still a little lake, a small beach, and my kids are able to walk around safely, cross the roads safely, move around safely, and want to come back here when they're older. Thank you.
Thank you. Now have an opening statement from John Callahan.
Hello, everyone. Thanks, Donna, Roger, Pastor Grayson, and the Lutheran Church for sponsoring this event, and the rest of the Civic Association leadership. Most of you know me. I'm a civil engineer, and a small town guy that moved to Florida 25 years ago. 5 years after arriving, we moved up to Juno Beach. And I love this town, and we were thrilled to get here. When we first got here, we just wanted to chill out and settle in. One thing I got involved in right away is I was asked to join the architectural review board in my community, Grand Bay and Oak Harbor. And so I was put on that committee and elected to the board of directors. I soon found out, in asking around town what was new, that there was a proposal for the northwest corner of Donald Ross and US 1 to rezone that property to allow 12-story condos. And I was surprised by that because I hadn't heard it, but then again, I was new, relatively new. So I asked the other leaders in the other 7 associations at Oak Harbor what they thought of the project, and I was surprised to hear that none of them had even heard of the project. Of course, they had no opinion. And as I asked around town, we found out there was a lot more people that didn't hear about that project. And I thought that was a little odd, but as I found out, that was more common than I thought it should be. I thought citizens should be involved. They should at least know what was coming down the train track. So I got involved. I served on a town committee that was to call a citizen advisory committee to look at that corner and make recommendations. Shortly after that, I ran for town council, and I won. It was largely on that issue of stopping that project on the northwest corner. And as Jim Lyons won the same year on that same issue. It turned out to be a very popular thing that people did not want those condos up there. So I tapped into that. And one of the first things we did when we got on the council was turn thumbs down on that 12-story proposal. And eventually we passed a site plan that met our code, which is 4 stories and 60 feet. A mixed-use project that had commercial on the first floor and 3 stories of residential. Unfortunately, the developer never went through and built that project, and it still hasn't been built on since then. I spent another 7 minutes, I spent another 9 years on the council. With overdevelopment in check, I decided to spend my spare time launching a live music website business, in addition to handling a busier schedule at my daytime job at Seacoast Utility Authority, and chill out a little bit again. What happened? Why am I back? A bad 7-story assisted living facility was being proposed, and some council members sounded like they might approve it. I was the first one at the microphone explaining it had 30 fatal flaws, and I was against it. A year ago, I accepted an appointment to the planning and zoning boards because I could be helpful on various development issues in town. Then Jim Lyons threw his curveball and announced his retirement. So knowing how developers are again knocking on our door all over town, I answered the call and decided to run for the open seat. And that's why I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now go to the candidates' questions for each other. And the first question is from John Callahan. The question is, what life experiences prepare you for the work of a town council member with regard to objectionable development proposals that still might meet the existing regulations in our zoning code? And you have 2 minutes to answer that.
As many of you know, I'm actually a fairly successful businessman. I didn't get there without doing negotiations. I'm an extremely strong negotiator, and I'm extremely well-versed at dealing with just about anyone and anything that can be thrown at me. When I go back to what I said previously, I can't be bought or manipulated. I operate to a fiduciary duty. What that means is I always operate to the best interest of those I'm entrusted in. That, in this case, would be the town and residents. I am here for the town and residents, and in this type of a scenario, I can deal with anything that is thrown at me, and I can deal with anyone that talks to me. And everything I do comes from a voice of reason. I will sit back and I will analyze every bit of information, and I will come back with a choice. And my choice will typically be in the best interest of the town, but not only that, it will be put in such a way that the residents will be protected in any way, shape, or form. If we're talking about overdevelopment, it's very easy. If they come in with something that's outside of, meets zoning, there are always deals that can be made. And I'm a strong force against playing games. But I'll be very straightforward with people and tell them exactly where they stand with me and how they stand. And as far as votes go in the end, my vote will be the one that supports the residents and takes care of the town and the beauty that it is. And I won't allow things to come in here and destroy this town. I've seen what it does to other towns. I've been there. I've dealt with it. I'm dealing with it currently in my next door neighbors. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Callahan, you have 1 minute for a rebuttal.
Thank you, Roger. The first thing I would say is that we're not going to give up without a fight. It's a common thing that developers propose things that are within code, maybe to scare us, or maybe to threaten that if we don't get to their will, that's what we'll be stuck with. So the first thing is we would fight it. What I've learned from my life experience, it's better to fight as a team than individuals. So the first thing I would do is realize it's not a staff battle alone. It's not council battle alone. It would be all of our battles together. And the best thing to do is to get together and get a unified front and decide what we're going to do and deal with this, deal with a problem like that. I have experience in that. I was the president of the Woodbine Master Association when we had turnover issues from the developer, and I negotiated a good, reasonable settlement for the outstanding construction defects and protected the town, that convinced the developer that his best option was to settle with us. And I thank you.
Okay, thank you. The next question was from Alexandra Cook, and it says, what were your accomplishments as a council member? And Mr. Callahan, what were your accomplishments as a council member? And you have 2 minutes to answer that.
Thank you. I did put a list of my accomplishments on my website. So I wanted people to be able to look back and see that. One of the things I did right away was turn down a development proposal for the northwest quarter, passed a site plan that, like I said, was within code, 4 stories and 60 feet. One of my under accomplishments, I stood against the speed trap. That was the speed van in town. I thought that was wrong. Turned out to be unconstitutional. I was against the red light cameras, which ultimately the town had to do a class action suit. It was not something I'd like to see in town. I also supported many grant applications for revitalization of Kagan Park. I was instrumental in booting out a bad town manager, which in my opinion was bad, and I count that as an accomplishment. I voted against him. I'm probably the only person that voted against him twice. First time when he was when he applied for the job, and the second time when he wore his welcome up. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Cook, you have 1 minute for a rebuttal.
Well, it's a very simple item. If you're just supporting things, what are the real accomplishments? You know, if you're against a speed trap, why would you ask the police to increase ticketing around town? That seems like a little bit of a problem. Very simply put, accomplishments have to really matter. You have to actually stand for something. You have to actually make things happen. I don't sit back and say yes to things. I'm not a yes man. I'm not going to sit up there and be the guy that gets bowled over and told what to do. I am going to stand my ground and do what's ever necessary to protect the town and keep the town a small little beach town. And that goes right back to the fact that we're all friends and neighbors. So you're for the speed trap, you're against the speed trap, but now you're for ticketing all our friends and neighbors. Seems like a problem. Thank you.
Okay, our next question is from John Callahan, and it says, what community relationships have you developed to help you perform your duties as a council member? And you have 2 minutes to answer that.
Absolutely. So, first and foremost, I am the president of my HOA board. I deal with the community very closely with that. We're currently dealing with the town trying to get our flowers and plants done in the front. No easy task, but we work on that daily, and we're trying to do some other work around our community. That is a direct one right here. I am also a big supporter of the Civic Association. Not just that, I am a trustee of the Palm Beach North Chamber of Commerce. Additionally, I am involved with the Leadership Business Council of Palm Beach, and I have the Palm Beach Chamber of Commerce, where I'm also an ambassador. I can probably go on and on, but I am heavily involved with the community around here, and not only am I heavily involved in the community around here, I'm heavily involved locally. That's why I took on the job as the HOA president. That's a small local situation where I can help my immediate friends and neighbors, and hopefully build from that and help my friends and neighbors in the town of Juno Beach as a council member. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Callahan, you have 1 minute for rebuttal.
Thank you, Roger. I value my commitment to the community and my relationships I've developed over the years. I think it's important to reach out and meet as many community groups as possible. The firefighters, for example, this election asked me to come down for an interview and talk to them. I accepted. Firefighting is very important in town, especially the paramedics. It's important that we have a good open relationship with them. Same thing with the business community. North PAC, the Chamber of Commerce Political Action Committee asked me to come in for an interview, and I did. And they endorsed my candidacy too, because they know how important good relationships is between the town council and the business community as well. I've also taken this opportunity during my campaign to meet as many people as I can meet, door to door, or at small gatherings, meet and greets and things like that. I try to keep in touch with other people outside of our community as much as possible. I think it's important to bring people together as much as possible.
Thank you. Okay, and our final question from Alexander Cook says, why are you running again after being quoted in the Palm Beach Post as saying it's time for someone else? And you have 2 minutes for response.
I assume that was 8 years ago when I declined to run in 2014. At the time, I had been on the council 9 years. Overdevelopment was in check. I had decided to start a small business, a live music website. And so I felt it was time to not run for re-election and let someone else run. I had no idea who was going to run, but I decided my time was up. And as it turned out, Jason Hasselhorn threw his hat in the ring and won, and he's been on the council since. So it worked out, and I did enjoy my time. Now I'm retired. I retired from Seacoast almost 2 years ago. I have a little more time in my hands, and I'm eager to get back into the fight with the overdevelopment pressures that we're facing. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Cook, you have 1 minute for rebuttal.
Sure, just a quick side note on the firefighters. It's the firefighters union, it is not the firefighters. Unions are very different from the actual firefighters themselves. And the North PAC endorsement, I very politely declined to interview on all of these. Remember, I am a trustee of that entity. It's a conflict of interest, and I don't like conflicts of interest. Not to mention, I'm not accepting contributions because I think that that's a problem as well. As far as dealing with the situation at hand, well, look, he was up there for 9 years. Even he said that we've had a good run and that the overdevelopment's gone from his standpoint. I would counter to say that there was a lot of problems left behind when he walked away and he dropped the ball very peacefully and went out the door. It's great that people took up the fight, but you need people to continue the fight who are willing to keep going with the fight. Thank you.
Okay, written questions from the audience. Those who are here and those who are online on Zoom will now be asked of the candidates. If anybody needs a card to write a question or would like the card collected, we'll just pause for a moment here and we can take care of that. And you can bring those cards up now if you have any. As I noted before, we'll have 1 minute for each of these answers. And we'll do it in alphabetical order, and we'll alternate the order of the responses. So the first question, this was actually an online question. It says, should Juno Beach expand the event space near the town center in view of the fact that they shouldn't be holding large gatherings due to COVID? Building costs are high. Should that be postponed? And we'll start with Mr. Callahan.
I absolutely support the expansion of the event center and town center. These building projects takes a long time between design, permitting, and finally construction started. COVID won't be as prevalent as it is forever. And we do have to bring people together. We have a very small event center right now that would be beneficial to the town to have more people with more opportunity to meet each other, to work together, to develop friendships, and to develop relationships for the future. We've needed it for a while. It's going to be paid mostly by grant funding. I hope and I trust that the grants will be approved, and I think it's a good project, and I'm behind it.
And Mr. Cook?
Look, the event space is a great idea in theory. You know, it's wonderful to have room for all these events, but not at the cost of the surrounding area. You know, that's a nice little green space over there. You want to turn that into more concrete? We already have enough concrete around. Let's keep things nice and beautiful and small. Let's keep the lake nice and beautiful and small. This money, these grants, they're supporting other things to take care of the town and benefit us. You know, there's a bunch of things that can be done with this money that's far better than an event space that we kind of already have, because we have a nice little green space where you can stand and sit and play out there. Turning it into concrete and layered and putting a retention wall there, it's messing with the area, and we don't need to do that. Thank you.
Okay, the next question, it says, have you accepted any contribution from developers or related parties to developers? And if so, which ones? And we'll first go to Mr. Cook.
No, I don't accept money from developers or related parties. I don't, and that's why I don't do the endorsements, because a lot of the endorsements come with money, and you have to promise to support certain things that they want. And if you're asking why I know this, they tried to do it with me, and I very politely declined many times. Here's the thing with the developers. They're outsiders. They're not part of the town for the most part, and they are looking to inflict their will on the town. There's one right next to me at Juno, Ocean 1. They shaved 10 feet off the dune. I don't care what you think about the building or whatever. That's not appropriate regardless of the situation. And the fact is, no, I don't take money from them. I don't work with them. In fact, I'm probably the best person to stand up to them. I already have. He actually threatened me and tried to go after me. If you think I'm afraid of him, you're kidding yourself, because the fact is, I work with hard facts and a simple belief that I'm doing what's best for the town, and I will stand up for the town, and I will stand up to someone I can. Thank you.
Mr. Callahan.
Well, the answer is no. I have not accepted any money from developers.
Okay.
Excuse me, or related parties, if clarification is needed. By the way, all my campaign contributions are public records. Anyone can call Caitlin and get a copy of them. All the contributions are public. All the expenses are public. It's part of transparency. The Florida law requires it. We have to turn in reports, and there's nothing to hide there. The money I have that's been donated to my campaign are almost exclusively from Juno Beach voters. I do have I did get a contribution from firefighters and from NorthPAC as part of their process for endorsement to help offset campaign expenses, as is common and acceptable. And that's my answer.
Okay, thank you. Next question says, should Juno Beach have a plan to protect the homeless, such as a coalition with churches or agencies? We'll start with Mr. Callahan.
I don't know if Juno Beach has a program to protect the homeless. No. I wouldn't be opposed to working with homeless. I don't think we have too many homeless people. I do know the police have a compassionate stance when they meet homeless people. If they're breaking any laws, they, of course, process them. But they try to get them some resources. And they try to point out to them where they can go if they want to get those resources on their own. But they do have a good policy of compassion towards the homeless, and it's a terrible thing to see. But a lot of these people have other issues besides homelessness. They have drug addiction or other mental problems to deal with, and our police department usually handles them as best they can.
Mr. Cook?
Well, I don't assume that people who are downtrodden are into drugs or have other side problems. It sometimes is the case, but not always. So we can't blanket assume that about people. As far as helping them, churches do a lot of what they can. This is not a simple answer. And this is something that will require a lot of thought and work. It is true that we don't have a big homeless issue in this town, but there are surrounding areas that do. The best thing that I could say about this is we could work with churches and maybe the surrounding towns to help deal with any situation that may arise in the future. Ultimately, I'd like to see the homeless people who are the downtrodden, which is the majority, receive a better life and hopefully move on to home ownership or rental or whatever is necessary to make them happy in that place. As for the town itself, I'll do whatever necessary to help these people and to help the town in the process.
Thank you. Next question says, please describe how you would build and execute a long-range plan for the town. Start with Mr. Cook on that.
All right, so someone's asking about the master plan. So yes, the master plan, probably something we need to start looking at. The town is at a bit of a crossroads here because there are a lot of plots of land that are currently in target for big developers. So far, some of this stuff has been fought off, but not all. And the implementation of a master plan will probably be necessary to protect the neighborhood's communities going forward. As far as the implementation, well, it's just going to require the council as a whole and the whole, the folks in the town hall office, as well as any residents who wish to get involved, because we want the input from the residents. At the end of the day, you know, this is your town too. You need to have a say, and you need to have a view and output and help us make this town the small, beautiful beach town it needs to stay and protect it that way. Thank you.
Mr. Callahan.
A master plan or a vision plan is one of the best defenses we have against overdevelopment. We should pursue it. I've been speaking about that at council meetings under public comment for a while. I know the council members are in favor of it. I've spoken to them individually, and I've heard them speak from the dais that they are in favor of a plan for at least the northwest corners of surrounding Donald Ross and US 1, and possibly the whole town. The problem seems to be implementation of that plan and how do we get there. I'd be more than happy to work on that plan and take a leadership role in that. The most important part of that plan is resident input. It's not that we would wait to get residents who wanted to get involved. We would actively seek residents and encourage them and bring them into the process. No matter what they're favored for, it's the best defense that we have is a good offense. We need to make a plan and tell developers what we want rather than wait for them to tell us what we're going to have to swallow.
Okay. Our next question asks, do you support an electric or battery operated leaf blower ordinance? And we'll start with Mr. Callahan on that.
I know there's a lot of people that don't like the leaf blower noise, me included. But I don't know about an ordinance. I know the town of Palm Beach passed something like that. I tend to favor it. I see a lot of good in resident satisfaction about being able to sleep longer without being woken up by loud leaf blowers, and I could see the benefits to the environment. I understand that the gasoline-powered leaf blowers throw up a lot of greenhouse gases, and as environmental leaders in town, we should probably be out in front of something like this that would benefit the environment, be very popular amongst the residents. I would want to, of course, we need to craft a good ordinance that would withstand constitutional challenges so that we didn't incur any financial setbacks because of that.
Mr. Cook?
As someone who's used an electric leaf blower, I can assure you they're not as quiet as you think. How about a good old-fashioned rake and broom? We came from an area that had an ordinance like that where you had to use a rake and a broom. You know, the leaf blowers, I don't know where this really came to function. It's useless in my view. It just spreads the dirt around and throws everything everywhere. The best you can do is corner it, then you still got to use a broom and a rake to sweep things up. You know, sometimes if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And the leaf blowers are a perfect situation of replacing something that already worked pretty well. So, brooms and rakes, folks.
Okay, the next question says, teamwork is vital to the future of Juno Beach. Please give us some examples of your excellent work as a team member. Mr. Cook, start with you.
Could you just read that one more time?
Yeah, teamwork is vital to the future of Juno Beach. Please give us some examples of your excellent work as a team member.
Well, I've been team member many times over, so much so that I got elevated to the point where I ran the whole west coast of the country for a firm. I've managed teams, I've run teams, I've been part of teams. I am a very good person to work along with because I'm willing to take on pretty much anything that's dealt with. Fortunately, sometimes that means that other people will drop the ball knowing they'll carry it for them, But ultimately, I do make sure that the team succeeds, and it is my belief that we all succeed when each and every one of us succeeds. So I have a huge background as being not only a team leader, but a real team player. To this day, I play team sports. I play ice hockey and lacrosse. And you don't get anywhere with a sport like that and to the level I play without being able to realize that you can't be a one-man team. And I've played at the highest levels, so I know very well how to work as a team.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Callahan.
One thing comes to mind is the no-wake zone on the Intercoastal Waterway. Years ago, there was a proposal to lower the speed in front of the Juno Beach areas, properties of Bay Colony and Oak Harbor, and a little bit further south and north. And it took a team to get that done because it's not regulated locally. I see Karen Marcus in the audience. She was on that team. Juno Beach Council was on that team passing a resolution. A lot of the community leaders lobbied, wrote letters, and did what they could, contributed to funding, and supported every effort to get that no-wake zone changed. And it was. It never changed to a no-wake, but it changed to a slow wake, which is a tremendous benefit to reduce damages to the waterfront properties on the Intercoastal. And it took a lot of people working together to do it, to agree on a purpose and to carry it out. We were just a small part of that team, but we were part. Another team, thank you.
We'll pause here for just a moment. If there's any more questions that you bring up, if you have a question, you need a card, just raise your hand. What we're doing here is alternating questions from the in-person audience and from the Zoom audience. Okay, thank you. All right, the next question. It says, what are your top 3 goals that you would like to see the town accomplish? And we'll start with Mr. Callahan.
Number 1 would be a vision plan for at least the northwest corner commercial areas, to get on board and tell developers what we would like instead of having them tell us what we would settle for. Number 2 is a townwide traffic study. There are so many complaints about the speed of traffic, the amount of traffic, the noise of traffic, and there's a question whether it's a perception or it's an actual problem. And it's different in different areas. There's no one size fits all. So my second priority would be a traffic study. The third one would be more community activities, more ways for people in individual condominiums to meet other people, and have more events at town center. Even before the community center was expanded, or the event center, it's good to get people together, and the council has a leading role that they should be pursuing to encourage that. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Cook.
So first and foremost, I'd like to see a code set in place where we lock in the designs that we have around our community. We shouldn't allow for developers to come in here and build whatever they want, regardless of the situation, even if it's within zoning. I want to see the Key West, Mediterranean, the true mid-century modern, and styles set up within the town and codified so that it is kept within that realm, and that we have a town that stays cute and small when things do get built and restrictions are put in place. Secondly, I'm a huge proponent of safety. If you've seen my letters, I've been a big speaker about the crosswalks. I'd like to see things get a lot safer around town and the surrounding areas so people can walk around and feel safe. And finally, I'm a huge proponent of protecting our natural spaces, the beaches, etc., and the lake. Thank you.
Okay, having a couple questions here on term limits, and they want to know, what is your position on term limits for elected Juno Beach officials? We'll start with Mr. Cook.
So, I am a huge proponent of term limits, and it's a very straightforward reason for this. I don't like the idea of people making their lifestyle out of public service. Public service for a town of Juno Beach is supposed to be just that, your civic duty. You get up there for maybe 2 terms and you do the best you possibly can for this town. and you don't make a lifestyle out of it, and you don't sit up there and do everything you can to make sure that you're in power and restrict the potential of others that are here to help the town as well. With that said, it's pretty clear I support term limits, and I do, and it is something that I would want to work on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Callahan.
No, I'm against term limits for towns like ours. Local level, we have term limits every election. You get a 3-year term. If you're elected at the end of 3 years, you have to run for re-election. And if you don't get it, you're out. We've seen examples of that lately where incumbents have lost their re-election. You just can't sit back, and that's how traditionally democracy works in the United States. The problem with term limits is when you're only there for a short time and out, the staff has more authority, other interest groups have more authority because you're a short timer. But once you're in there and that you are going to be there, then you know that you have the support of the people, it gives you in a much stronger position to do good for the town.
Okay. This questioner wants to know whether you lean conservative or liberal. Start with Mr. Callahan.
Well, as you know, in Florida, we don't have partisan elections. And that's a good thing. When we were sign waving, we had somebody from the Northeast, I think New York and New Jersey, said the nice thing about Florida is you guys can get things done, which is good. On my campaign team, for example, we probably have an equal number of Democrats, Republicans, and no parties. And I couldn't tell you whether they lean liberal or conservative because it doesn't come up. The most important thing is we're all on Team Juno Beach, and we have to work together. Now, personally, I tend to be a little more liberal than conservative. I'm married to someone that's a little more conservative than liberal. We balance out. So that's how it works in our family.
Mr. Cook.
Being that I deal in the financial world, I tend to be a fiscal conservative, but ultimately I'm a true centrist. I run right down the middle. I have liberal leanings in my personal life and social views. I really want the best for everyone that I can help. And that's not truly leaning heavily one way or the other. That's looking at the best interest for anyone and everyone that's involved. I work with Democrats, I work with Republicans, I work with independents, I work with anyone. And I can tell the difference between them, and I can read who is and who isn't. I've done this my whole life. But I'm here to bridge the gap between all these people, because not only can I talk and deal with them, they're very comfortable with opening up to me on both what I can do for them and why I would do it for them on both sides of the spectrum, right down the middle as well. Thank you.
Okay, this next question says, how do you feel about overturning decisions made by prior town councils? And I also asked about the role of precedent. We'll start out with Mr. Cook.
This is a touchy subject. So turning over rules and past precedent is only necessary in extreme cases. There are situations where it is a necessary evil to go back and look at what was put in place and change it. However, it's my belief that the past people did want to operate in the best interest of the town. So I would hope that everything that we're looking at is already in place for the best representative of the residents and the town. However, with that said, it's a very changing world. It's changing very fast, and some rules have not kept up with the times. It might be necessary to go back and change things for the benefit of the town in order to deal with certain scenarios that can arise in a changing world. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Callahan.
I'm not certain what prompted a question like that as far as what aspects of the town council, because the town council is executive. They carry out the ordinances. They're legislative. They make new ones, and they're judicial too. They hear quasi-judicial cases and have to decide on things, appeals from the zoning board. If it's a zoning related issue, it's very tricky to overturn what the council did in the past because of financial considerations and taking away property rights. If it's a choice what events to have the ice cream social one year, of course, the next council can say, you can cancel it, have 2 of them, move it to the fall or whatever. It's each council's decision on those type of things. So it actually depends on what the particular thing being brought up to the council is, and it just depends.
Okay, this question asks, what areas are developers looking at? And it says that there isn't too much land that's left that's available for development. And we'll start with Mr. Callahan.
Question is, what areas are developers looking at to develop?
Yeah.
I think we're less than 2% available land right now. I think we're 98% built out. Last I heard, I know the northwest corner of US 1 is about 5 acres. Christmas tree lot across the street on the south side is vacant. There's a property just down from Papaquan, maybe an acre or 2, that's for sale for a while, that can be developed. The parking lot next to Charlie's, Captain Charlie's. Other than that, there's not too much to develop. There's plenty to redevelop. And what we need to focus on for the next 50 years is a lot of these properties that already are developed are going to change as the economy changes. So we need to protect ourselves and decide with a plan what the redevelopment is going to be looking like, not only the development of the 4 parcels or 5 parcels that I know that are left.
Okay, Mr. Cook.
I assume this person's looking for the fact that there's 2 major plots that are currently in somewhat of play. That would be that Donald Ross corner that the other candidate just referenced, and the Charlie's Reef Grill area, where a developer came in with a plan to build a 6-story condominium on top of Charlie's Reef Grill there, and wipe the whole area out and build residential condos there, 35 units. That got scared off, but that doesn't mean he won't come back with something else. The Donald Ross corner has been a whole other issue. They've come back with a plan recently that is a little bit better in height, but it still doesn't meet all the requirements of the current zoning code. In any case, either one of these situations is a little bit of an issue for the town. Traffic congestion, build-out problems, infrastructure issues, all of this are things that we're going to have to deal with if these properties are allowed to do whatever they see fit.
Thank you. Next question says, name 3 things you've done to benefit the town or its people. Mr. Cook?
Well, one of the biggest ones was I was the person up there in the big fight against the corner of Donald Ross. Feel free to look up the recordings of me calling out the developer and the planners behind that. Some of you may or may not know the planner that worked on that property was also in the deal on the Juno Point, which is the Charlie's Reef Grill area. I have already stood up and led that fight. I don't stand down to these people. Additional things, well, I've pointed out where we need to deal with other things like safety issues. I've gone to the town about the crosswalks and issues before. My family and I have gone to the town. We are here for the town and the benefit of all its people. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Callahan.
I did include a compilation on my website, for the campaign website, of the things that I was proud of on the town council in the past. But I'll just mention 3 here. Lowering taxes. Our mill rates are substantially down from when I first got on the council to the time I got off. It's still heading in the right direction, and I'll work to lower it even more. Sidewalks. I was a big sidewalk guy. I was promoting sidewalks on both sides of US 1. The DOT did include it in their project a few years ago, sidewalks at Kagan Park and things like that. And the third thing, the Juno Beach Nature Walk with the Juno Beach Civic Association. They sponsor the walks, and Bill Green and I started it, and we got a lot of people in town to the first trip through the natural areas to appreciate and see what's back there. We made a little map called the Trails of Juno Beach at the time, and that's the thing I probably am most proud of. Thank you.
I will take just a brief pause. Are there any more questions to bring up from the audience? Thank you. Okay. Next question. It says, if you become a Juno Beach Town Council member, will you pledge not to accept gifts, entertainment, meals, rounds of golf from any person or entity with a business interest in Juno Beach, including indirectly from the town that covers the period now during your campaign and if you're elected? And we'll start with Mr. Callahan.
The acceptance of gifts is regulated by the Florida Ethics Commission. There's very strict rules the Florida State has, the Florida County has, on what you can accept, how to accept, how to report things, and I would abide by those rules. I don't plan to accept any other gifts, but I wouldn't turn away, lunch at McDonald's occasionally if you want the truth in it. I don't see that's rises to the level of a bribe. So that would be my position, is to follow the county ethics rules to the T. Thank you.
Oh.
When it comes to ethical things like this, I never do what's just enough. I don't accept that. I don't do that. I don't get involved with the rounds of golf. I don't take money. I don't do any of this. Remember I said in the beginning that I don't accept contributions? This is exactly why. I really was, I know, I was laughing at myself a little bit, but this is why I stand before you saying to you, I'm a bit of a superhero. I don't do those kinds of things. I stand by who and what I am, and I don't take the gifts, I don't take the manipulations, and I don't play any games. On a little side note here, the mill rate is actually all worked on by the town manager and CFO. The council just votes yes or no on it. So, it's an accomplishment, I suppose. Thank you.
Okay, the next question asks, do you feel that you and your opponent have run an ethical campaign? We'll start with Mr. Cook.
That's an interesting one to shoot. My answer is no. And why is it no? Well, I've always had people out and about that relay things back to me about things going on. Now, I'll stand before you and I'll stand for everything that I say and I'll stand behind everything I say. And if you want to call me out, I'll bring you the facts because that's how I operate. I don't put anything out there that I don't have information on and things to talk about. However, I've already dealt with the other side's proxies going around saying things about me, which are not only wholly untrue, I've caught people saying these things themselves. Here's the facts. Talk to me, ask me questions. I'll answer everything. I'll tell you why I do something. I'm very straightforward. I don't play games and I don't beat around the bush and I don't have other people fight my battle. I stand up and I stand up for who and what I am. Thank you.
Mr. Callahan.
I have no idea who these proxies might be. If you have an accusation, just let me know. I'll gladly call them down and talk to them about it. But I don't have proxies working for me. I think the ethical question might be the issue that blew up over Saturday with the sign waivers. Sign waivers are all volunteers. All the campaign workers that I have is volunteers. We have a list of, I think it's 16 sign waivers now. We have 35 or 40 volunteers. They're almost all Juno Beach voters. And they enjoy working on campaigns. I've seeked them out. I've recruited them. I've known people for a while. I'm proud of them. There's nothing wrong. So I imagine that whoever asked that question is asking about the ethics of that. I believe in an ethical campaign, 100%. It's a picture of what you'd be like as a town council member. When you meet people and you put yourself up, people expect you to carry it through.
Okay, thank you. The next question says, how would you change or stop Ocean Drive from being a throughway for outside traffic, particularly on weekends? and referring specifically to the area south of Donald Ross Road down to the mobile gas station. So, Mr. Callahan, go first.
One way to, well, first of all, as I said before, I think we need a traffic study so we have some facts to work with. So how much traffic, what's the speed of the traffic, where are the problems? Is it a problem during the week, during the weekends? Is it rush hour traffic? Is it, beachbound traffic? There are ways to slow traffic, of course. There's traffic calming. As a civil engineer, I designed some traffic calming features in West Palm Beach. It's a mixed result if people like them or not. Some people love the speed bumps, but if it's in front of your house, you're going to hate it. You could lower the speed limit on Ocean Drive, for example, 5 miles lower. We could increase traffic enforcement, more ticketing. There's things that we can't do if we want, if it's warranted, and the facts, support that there is actually a speeding problem. Like I said, the first step is a traffic study. I committed to lead a discussion on the issues like that at Town Council, and we'll hear from the rest of the town as well and get to a conclusion.
Okay, Mr. Cook.
So rather than telling the police about more ticketing, I actually went and spoke to them. And the answer I received from them was that first off, the speeding is predominantly down, and when they do ticket, it's mostly all of us that live around here, and we don't want all our tickets getting jacked up on us. The real solution here is the simplest, and I've already said this a few times, especially with this particular area that they're asking about. That's a whole 1 mile stretch there of community where everybody walks around. Why aren't there crosswalks? Crosswalks naturally calm traffic. Traffic doesn't want to cruise in there if there's crosswalks because they have to keep stopping and slowing down for every crosswalk. They'll only be end-of-line delivery at that point. They'll stay to other roads. Ocean Drive won't be a throughway in that scenario. There's a reason why people don't want to go blazing through the end of Ocean Drive where it comes Jupiter down by Guanabanas. There's crosswalks there. There are speed bumps too, but we don't need those crosswalks to really do the trick. Thank you.
Okay. This question asks, how do you see the role of the Juno Beach Property Owners Association? Mr. Cook?
I haven't had too much dealings with the POA. I know who they are because I've seen their messages here and there. I'd like to believe that the POA is here for the residents and their benefit and working for the residents. But again, I'm not going to be the best person to fill you in on this because I don't really know too much about them. But it is my assumption as a property owners association, they are for the property owners of Juno Beach. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Callahan.
I actually don't know that much about the association. I know they started a number of years ago. I believe it was opposition to the town manager at the time. They were more active, I believe, in emails. I did see a few of their emails then, but not lately. And I couldn't tell you what exactly they're up to. I'm not on their list.
Okay. Next question asks, do you endorse calls from the Waterford to Juno Beach residents as a, quote, survey? Mr. Callahan? Yeah, do you endorse calls from the Waterford to Juno Beach residents as a, quote, survey? That's what the question
Calls
is.
from the Waterford to, I think I know what you mean. I had heard that the Waterford was surveying people in Juno Beach, whether they support the expansion and modernization. I heard that from some people that it's their right. They're a private entity. If they want to call Juno Beach residents or anyone, get an opinion, that's certainly their right. It's not something I would support or not support. Anyone has the right to make phone calls or have a company to make phone calls on their behalf. You're awful worried about this proposal getting turned down again, but it's a good one. I don't see it being turned down. The Planning and Zoning Board approved it. They just want to cover every possible base because it's been so long in the coming, and the people there are anxious and they're not getting any younger. They want to see it go.
Okay, Mr. Cook.
I don't know too much about this particular question either. The best answer I can give you is their own entity. They can call people if they wish. You can choose not to answer. I don't endorse it. I'm not a big proponent of of harassing people, but if they want to call, they have every right to.
The next question is kind of related to that, and it asks specifically, what is your position on the proposed Waterford annexation? We'll start with Mr. Cook.
On the point of the annexation, the first vote.
What the expansion, yeah.
The
expansion, and also you can address the annexation too.
Well, the simple fact of the Waterford is they have a community in there that needs all the end-of-life care. They have a lot of families in there that we want to see stay together and not have to be separated and move to other areas when certain life events occur. They needed the ability to have that as a one-site on-site, and there's been some benefits to that, to the town. One of those is we've now set up a situation where the density of those entities has come down, and it's very likely we won't have another facility similar to the Waterford, which will be competition to the Waterford anywhere else. So the Waterford can be a premier entity to our south, right where it sits, and be a jewel as part of our community. And I do support the expansion plans. They've bent over backwards to do what's necessary.
Okay, Mr. Callahan.
Well, Waterford's a very successful project. It's been good for the residents, it's been good for the town, it's been good for the neighboring area, and it's been a success story. But however, they need to modernize. They need to modernize to stay competitive. They need end-of-life care. They need memory care, and they need assisted living facility right there on their campus. I think most people realize the impetus for their change is that without assisted living and memory care, when a spouse needs that service, they have to get shipped out somewhere else, like Delray Beach, and a couple is separated, and that's tragic. It's happened to some of them, and we're included. Let's face it, that could happen to us, and we all think about that. So it's very important to them that they have facilities right there. Now, the town should support it. They should support the annexation. They've come to terms with the residents of Pleasant Ridge, what I think is a good solution, and it's a go.
All right, aside from the Waterford, are there any other areas that the town should annex? We'll start with Mr. Callahan.
Well, annexation is voluntary. If the property owner wants to annex in to Juno Beach, I would say yes. Almost all cases, we should agree with that property owner, but there are no adjacent property owners that I know that are interested. The involuntary annexation is never going to work, and I would not support any of that. When you do involuntary annexation, Juno Beach can put it on the ballot. They vote in the new area, they vote in Juno Beach. Both areas have to approve it, and what will happen if Juno Beach initiates it, they're going to say no. So that's not going to happen in any case. They want to annex in. If they want to, Juno Beach would probably say no. So that's
I'm going to be less supportive of annexing large communities in the surrounding areas. Simply put, the town has its infrastructure and everything else built out to a certain level. You know, there's our taxes and everything are based upon what we have and what we do. Just taking on another community, there are certain expenses. You know, there's talk about maintaining low taxes. Well, you know, you can't really maintain low taxes if the police are forced to cover new areas that weren't there before. Those expenses go up, and I know that someone will say that, well, that area will pay for it. Not necessarily. You know, there are expenses that are incurred with this. Plus, there's the added fact that we have a nice, beautiful, small beach town. Do we really want to be grabbing everything around us like Palm Beach Gardens? Thank you.
We'll take another brief pause here to get some more questions from the audience. Okay. This questioner wants to know, is there any end in sight for the escalating cost of housing rent? And we'll start with Mr. Cook.
Well, you know, population increases, so people have to live somewhere. You know, it's a huge yes and no answer. The rest of the country, it's probably coming to an end with a lot of the expansion. The South Florida area, not likely. 99 new residents join us in Palm Beach County every day. That's a fact. And they gotta live somewhere, so they're gonna find places and they're gonna cram in. So the best thing we can do is keep the town as small and protected as possible and keep these massive condo complexes and rental complexes from encroaching on our area, because we're the ones that end up paying for these costs and things in the long run. We will end up paying for the cleanup and the other things, because they will eventually use our infrastructure, et cetera, when they're in the surrounding areas.
Mr. Callahan.
The answer is yes. If anyone has read history of Florida, they know one thing. It's boom and bust. Florida's been through 7 or 8 periods of rising home values and a terrible crash after it, and it's going to happen again. Sure as anything, this is just another phase. It's going to happen in the rest of the country as well. But it always has happened in Florida. It gets more inflated than the rest of the country when things are good. It crashes harder and faster when things go bad. So that's one of the reasons the town has a healthy reserve, because when that downside comes and the tax revenue falls, we have to have enough to keep the same level of service for our police department and the the other services we provide. So yes, the pre-market will take care of that. It always does, and it's not going to change. And there's certainly nothing Juno Beach can do about it.
Okay, thank you. This person wants to know, will you push for the bridge at Marcinski Road? Most traffic over Donald Ross Bridge goes north to Jupiter. And we'll start with Mr. Callahan.
Will I push for the bridge?
For a bridge at Marcinski Road.
Absolutely. I listed it on my website too. Yes, it's been in the long-range plans. Juno Beach should push for that road, Marcinski Road Bridge. It's on the long-range plan. It needs to be on the short-range plans. We need to start looking at it. It's another evacuation route. It'll relieve our congestion. It'll contribute to a grid system. I think, as we've all seen, forcing traffic to a choke point is not a good solution to traffic. The more interconnections we have, the better. And the Marcinski Road Bridge would actually help people in the Bluffs get to 95 quicker. It relieves traffic in a number of ways. But there is local opposition, from what I understand, and we should not give up on it and try to get that pushed through in the future if we could.
Mr. Cook.
So another bridge. Well, the beauty of technology is that it brings new ideas. How about a tunnel? Doesn't have to go up and down. We don't have to line up and worry about the issues of waiting for bridges. The technology is not only there, but the cost is extremely low at this point. I mean, people joke about Elon Musk and his boring company, which drills holes in the ground for just this purpose, but it really is a modern day solution. If we want to put things like those kinds of plans in the future, those are fantastic plans. We don't have earthquakes and things around here. We can build beautiful tunnels, run it right underneath, come right out the other side. You never have a bridge going up and down. You never have traffic, and you don't have a moving project that needs to be repaired all the time, like the PGA bridge is going right now. Thank you.
Okay, this resident wants to know, says, do you think residents should be assessed for infrastructure improvements in addition to paying taxes? And Mr. Cook?
No, that's what taxes are. We don't just throw out assessments randomly to the public. Property taxes are based by the county's total tax rates and the things you need to deal with. No, I don't believe in throwing random assessments out there. It's not even a truly viable item unless you're dealing with certain scenarios that have to be rebuilt community-wise. If you are looking to go down that road, these assessments have to be necessities, and they have to be items that we allow a referendum and allow people to vote for to decide if it's something we truly need. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Callahan.
Assessments are a common funding mechanism for the people that receive a particular benefit to pay for it. the municipality engages in an assessment for, say, a sewer project for a particular area, and they have the ability to get financing at favorable rates, spread it out over 30 years, put it on your tax roll, things like that. But it is common and acceptable for an area that wants to get some improvements, and they don't have the way to pay for it, for the town to help do that. It's usually a beneficial, the thing that's worked out between the people that got the benefit and the town who makes it happen. So in those cases, it's appropriate and it's a good way to get things done.
Okay, this person asks, what can you tell us about the land vacated by FPL? What will be developed there? And it says that FPL will be selling it. So we'll start, Mr. Callahan.
FPL hasn't told us if they're selling, and it's an official word from them. It has been for a long time. They're staying put. There's a lot of advantages to having their headquarters in Juno Beach, even though they have a new facility on the west side of the intercoastal. They have a place for helicopter to land, for example. The people that work there, the executives like it. They like the atmosphere, like being close to the beach and things like that. If they ever decided to leave, it would be a whole new ball game as far as what happens. But it would be foolish to make a plan before it actually happens. We want them to stay. We want that message to go out to FPL that we like them, we'll work with them. We like, it's been good so far, and we'll continue to have a good relationship, and they're welcome to stay in our town as long as they want to.
Mr. Cook?
Plan for the best, prepare for the worst. Though it is true that FPL has made no announcements about selling or anything like that, it is also true that they have a pretty fantastic new facility in Palm Beach Gardens. In my experience in the business world, it is usually a sign that eventually they're probably headed out the door. They currently have the management team and a lot of their financial and all those entities operating out of there. And as it goes, there's no reason for them to currently leave. But it is probably true that we probably should think about what potentially could happen in the near future if they did decide to leave, because it's not like they don't have a place to go to now. Thank you.
Okay, next question. Are there areas where the town should spend more money or less money? We'll start with Mr. Cook.
I like where the budget has been operating for the town for the most part. As far as spending more money, the only things we really should be looking at right now is a master plan so that we can make sure that the town doesn't wind up getting overdeveloped in the wrong areas and destroyed. That there is some cost to that, but as far as other situations, really one of the few things that I've had a little bit of an issue with expense-wise is the event center. You know, it is $300,000 to rip up the grass there and build something there. These are funds that probably could be used to help us in other ways. The lake could use some nice care. Really would appreciate it. I think we'd all like that because the lake is kind of the heart of our town. You know, care for our.
Okay. Next question is, what is your? I'm sorry, Ms. Callahan.
The town council sets the budget and looks at expenses every year. Usually in the summertime, they end up passing it in September. And lately there hasn't been much of a discussion on any major changes. You know, the budget's pretty set. The police department budget and all the other departments are set by the department heads and the town manager. They bring it to council and give their opinion on where we should be. I don't see any reason to increase much, decrease much, but there's always a little flexibility and discussion at that time. There's no big expenses or big cuts coming anytime soon. Time is, with the economy being a little uncertain, what's going to happen, a war may break out, the housing market might crash, or things like that. It's best to sit tight and not get too far out the limb one way or the other.
Okay, thank you. Next question. What is your position on the proposed Juno Point residential and commercial development at US 1 and Donald Ross Road? Mr. Callahan.
As with a lot of other things, resident involvement is needed. I brought this. How many people saw this proposed development at the corner? I brought it with me. It's been available. The developer submitted this, and it's not the most visually appealing. Let me put it that way. It technically might meet the code of a modern architecture, but it doesn't really seem to fit in with the area to me. So it's a mixed bag. Technically, I don't believe they meet the code. What the proposal is, they might be able to tweak it. But in things like this, when it's when we might have to go to negotiations, go to war, whatever you want to call it, with a developer that wants his way, it's important for us to get together, all on the same team, decide what we want, and negotiate the best deal we can.
Okay, Mr. Cook.
Look, I'll be clear about it. I've seen those plans as well. I have them. To me, it's ugly as sin. It's a giant concrete block, and it's straight out of Fort Lauderdale in Miami. So, you know, do we want to be Fort Lauderdale in Miami? No, it does not meet the current code. It would require a change in the residential to commercial for that to work. Not only that, there still are some height issues and density issues with it. Look, the fix here is this. Let's go back and set the designs that need to be done in the town. I said this earlier, the mid-century modern, the Key West, and the old Florida cracker styles. If we codify something like that, guess what? They can't come in with these ugly buildings and do this kind of stuff and force us to have to live surrounded by giant concrete blocks. Additionally, there is room to negotiate with this. You know, they are trying to vote down that variance, the 95.5. Thank you.
Okay, we're nearing the end of our question period, so this is the final call for any questions from the audience. Thank you. Okay. How do you feel on relocating the FPL poles from Ocean Drive to US 1? We want to know. And this is, we'll start with Mr. Cook.
Look, this came up a year or two ago. Aesthetically, it would look beautiful to have the poles gone, but let's keep in mind that this is a big project and there's a lot of expense to it. This is an item that needs to go to a referendum. We need to get a vote from the whole community and see what their comfort level is with it. Then we could probably push it forward. But yes, it looks beautiful, but there is expense. It does also mean the lines are stronger and better and easier to manage. But again, back to the expense. This is a huge expense for the town. So this needs to be voted on by a referendum. The town needs to have their say. If the town's for it, well, then I would support it. Thank you.
Mr. Callahan.
I wouldn't support going through the trouble of putting it on the referendum. This comes up every few years. The property owners on Ocean Drive want the poles moved. Everyone behind Ocean Drive doesn't want to pay for it. And I can tell you how popular it's going to be once they see the cost. That's a tremendous cost. People are not going to want to assess themselves and pay for that to, you know, underground those block mains. Where you see undergrounding commonly is the distribution lines, the last half mile, the last block in people's neighborhood. Those things can be economically underground, and a lot of towns have it, but these big concrete poles, these transmission lines, a lot of them can't be buried. They'd have to go over to US 1, and it would be a phenomenal cost too, and a total waste of time to even bring it up. the thing would lose 99-1.
Okay, the final question we have time for in our question period before we go into the closing statements asks, what are the main differences between you and your opponent? Mr. Callahan?
Main differences, okay. I'm not a superhero. I'm not a one-man show. I think that the way I look at community involvement is the more of us in a solution, the better. We want to involve more community into decision-making. We want more community involvement, especially in the northwest corner of US 1 and things like that. We want to work as a group. We want to put partisan politics aside. We want to be Team Juno Beach and all on the same team to make a better community. That's where I look at it. I have a lot of ideas, but my ideas aren't what's most important here. Your ideas are what's most important. And I'll bring you to the council and involve you more in the process. I think that's one of the main differences between, other than our age, between Alex and me.
Okay, Mr. Cook.
To me, well, I mean, you pointed out the superhero, and I guess you went with the fact that I'm a lone gunman. I'm actually quite the opposite. When I say I'm a superhero, I'm someone that comes up and lifts everyone, okay? I bring everyone with me. I work with everyone. And I am not partisan in any way, shape, or form. Anyone that talks with me knows that. Ultimately, where we are going to differ a lot is our experiences and background. I'm completely self-made. I run my own investment firm. I have a background that I created because I had to teach myself pretty much everything, and I had to evolve from a pretty rough place that I came out from years ago. It has put me to a point where I can handle a lot, I can deal with a lot, and I'm steadfast. And I don't allow emotion to control me. I make the right decision, and I do it for the benefit of all. And we are very different. Thank you.
I just want to get one more question in here because I think it's important. It was asked about, this says the town manager and chief financial officer are retiring about the next year. And do you feel there are any internal candidates? And just in general, what should the town be looking for to fill these positions? Mr. Cook.
For both of these positions, it's kind of a big deal. The town manager could potentially lead the town well into the next 10, 15 years. CFO is right behind him. When I spoke earlier about the fact that the millage rate is actually done by these guys, this is one of the big work things that they put together. They make a lot of these things happen. It is a big deal. I stand up here as someone with a massive financial and accounting background. I am the kind of person that has had in the past to hire and fire these kinds of people. I know who to look for and who to deal with, and I know where the best candidates are in these kinds of scenarios. I am literally born to do these kinds of things. Thank you.
Mr. Callahan.
The finance director is hired by the town manager, so we would not, as a council, we would not have a direct say in finance position. With the town manager retiring, I think it's important to get a process in place, agree on it, and start earlier than we have to get a new candidate on board. I'm not against an internal candidate. Certainly they would have the same rights as any other candidate for that position. And I think the most important thing is to accelerate the process, get a new town manager on board about 6 months before Joe leaves, so that they can work side by side and they can learn the Juno Beach system and be more likely to be successful at that time.
Okay, now we'll go into our closing statements. As I mentioned before, the candidates will each have 3 minutes to make their closing statements. And Mr. Callahan, start with you.
Thanks, Roger. The timekeepers. We covered a lot of ground tonight. I think you can see a difference between Alex Hook and myself, and that's a good thing to see us side by side and taking questions. If I'm elected, my #1 priority will get more residents involved in town affairs. It's the best way for us to protect our future. We're very fortunate to live in this great town. In my opinion, Juno Beach is the best town in Palm Beach County. And Palm Beach County is the best town in the state of Florida. And the state of Florida is the best state in the union. And the United States is the best country in the world, and we want to keep it that way. So if you like our small town feel, and you want to keep it that way in the future, vote for me. And if you like the low mill rate and you want to keep taxes low in the future, vote for me. If you like our friendly vibe, if you like our safe town, you want to keep safety as a priority, vote for me. If you like our friendly vibe, vote for me. And if you are proud of our environmental leadership position and being the #1 town in environmental preservation and at the cutting edge of environmental technologies, vote for me. I appreciate your vote and appreciate you listening. Thank you very much.
And Mr. Cook, your closing statement.
Yes, I stand before you as someone who's only been here 5 years. But I also stand before you as someone who's seen what happens to towns like this if you don't put the right people in power. I am seeking all of your votes. And I am seeking all of your votes telling you that I stand for you, the residents. I always put your interests above my own. And if you doubt that, just look into my past. I have always fought the good fight for the benefit of others. I stand here as someone who has taken this upon himself, the expenses and all, and I do this because I would very much like to be here for many years to come with my family, and I don't want to see outsiders and developers and other entities destroy this town we have. You want a small, beautiful beach town? I am the man. I am the person that will stand up there and make sure the town is protected. I don't go easy with the people that will manipulate and try to make deals. Going back to what was said before about accepting the rounds of golf and things like that, no, I pay my own way. I pay my own way with everything. And I do that because I'm a strong believer in the issues of conflict of interest. I will not put myself in any scenario where there's a conflict of interest. And I can stand here and tell you that I am 100% for the residents in town and no one else. I don't have union money supporting me. I politely decline them. You know why I politely decline them? Because they want you to vote for things that they want. You want to maintain low taxes? You come to me. I will work to maintain low taxes with the rest of the team. You don't go to the people that have taken money from the union who asked you to bend the knee for their own line in our property records. Do you understand what that means? It means they requested that they have the right to raise your taxes at will. Yes, they do that. These are what unions do. We want to have control of our town. We want a small beach town. We want the ability to stand out here and be protected of the encroaching crowds around us. We don't want to be overrun by the Amaras and the Altons, etc. The only way you do that is you put someone like me up at the council who stands in front of these people frequently, has dealt with these people in the past, and not only knows how to negotiate, but knows how to keep them in their place. There's a reason why I was threatened by the developer and no other candidate has. He's afraid of me. You should know that that's strength. If I can create fear in the developers, know that I can create a situation where we can protect this town. Thank you.
Okay, I just want to let you know, go ahead. This forum has been recorded, and if anyone would like to look at it again, they can go to the Civic Association's website, junobeachcivic.org, to watch the forum. I would like to thank the candidates for their participation, the Juno Beach Civic Association for sponsoring this forum, and I would like to thank all of you for attending. And this race, as I mentioned, will be on the March 8th ballot. I urge everyone to exercise the right to vote. Thank you, and good evening.